All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. This is Shannon Williams. I'm here with my co-host Darren Shepard for this week's episode of The Context. We have an awesome episode for you today, and it's our last episode before we take a week off for vacation. It is unofficially our analytics, telemetry, observability, traceability episode of The Context. So we're going to be having a lot of talk today about how you understand what your MCP is doing and whether you like what it's doing. Um, just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. We are getting very close to opening up the call for papers for the next MCP Dev Summit. We are going to be in New York on the 2nd and 3rd of April. If you don't have it marked on your calendar, go do that right now and then come back and watch the rest of the show. The call for papers will probably open up early next week, and we have an amazing program committee this time coming together. So we'll announce all that next week. If you have missed any of the awesome talks from London, they are all online on our YouTube channel. So please enjoy them, watch them, learn, and think about what you are going to present. Because last year for London, we had over 120, I think, submissions to speak. But we were just one day. So I'm hoping with 2 days, we'll get over 200 submissions to speak. Um, Especially if you're doing things, if you're building things, if you're building products, if you're building open source projects, or if you are thinking about how to implement MCP for your company, we would love to have you come and talk, build a panel, do a demo. There's just so many great ways to educate the audience. We have been super busy the last few weeks on the context. We've had some amazing shows. We had a really good presentation from David, I think a week and a half ago, on the direction the project is going, the protocol is going, and Darren and I spent a lot of time digging into some of the new capabilities around asynchronous tasks and around the registry and such. If you missed it, it's up. Go take a look, and you can listen to Darren and David dive into all sorts of questions about how you would use these new cool features. We have a couple of amazing talks today. Then we are off for a week, and when we come back, I'm really excited. We are going to be talking to Toby over at GitHub on how the registry is evolving, and going through a bit of a deep dive on using the new registry with clients. I think it's going to be one of the better talks of the year. So if you have time, join us on the 4th for what should be a really interesting episode of The Context. And we are always taking new speakers. So if you have something that you're building or you'd like to share, scan the QR code and come join us and show what you're building. With that, I think we can get started. These talks are always meant to be pretty detailed technical discussions that are constrained to about 20 minutes. And I think we're going to have two great ones today. Our first speaker is Austin Bourne. He's the CEO at Shinzo Labs and founder. He's going to be talking about using OpenTelemetry for MCP Analytics and kind of what they're building at Shinzo. And then after him, we have Shubham Palriwala from Agnost AI, and Shubham is joining us from Bangalore, and he's going to be talking about sort of the approach Agnost is taking around analytics and metrics. So 2 talks looking at this question of what can you do to understand your MCP in more detail, and it should be a lot of fun. So guys, thank you very much for joining us, and let's get started. Austin, can you get your slides all up, and maybe while you're pulling them up, just kind of do a quick introduction of yourself?
Yeah. So I actually don't have many slides to present today. I can definitely go through the product that we have, but just to give some background, I have been working on Shinzo since the beginning of this year. And prior to that, I spent 5 years working in the blockchain industry as a blockchain engineer. And so I have a lot of experience working on, decentralized open source protocols. And I think that my experiences from that industry carry over very well into the MCP world. And I think, when I was looking at what projects I was working on at Shinzo, when I first heard about MCP, it really sparked that kind of decentralized ethos in my heart. And I really loved the fact that it was an open protocol that anyone can contribute to. And it was a system that the community was bringing together so that we could have interoperable systems that had a clear foundation for the AI agent revolution that we're going through. And so as I went into the MCP world, I started by building some MCP servers. So I built a few that currently get about 23,000 calls per month. But the big problem that I found was that as a single developer, I did not have any connections with my users who are using these servers. And so I had no idea who they were. I had no idea why they used my servers. And it was not clear what software was out there to actually give me that kind of insight. And so I decided to build an instrumentation solution on top of OpenTelemetry for my own servers. And I then open source that so that other developers can use it for their servers as well. And since then, I have built the actual ingest and front end platform that I'm calling Shinzo Platform. And this allows users to actually import their telemetry straight into our platform, focused on MCP servers and focused on observability for AI agents in particular. And so I'm happy to share a bit more about the product itself. So I'll go ahead and share here. Can you see my screen here?
Yeah, I see the window that showing the StreamYard.
The StreamYard. Let me switch that. Percent. Okay, share screen. There we go. Okay. How's that?
There we go. Looks great.
Nice. Great. So the main idea behind Shinzo is that we're offering OpenTelemetry-based observability solutions for MCP developers. So the idea is that for companies and for individual developers that are building servers that they want to offer to users, this helps them get insights into knowing who their users are and how they're using those servers. On the dashboard page, you get basic information about how many servers are running, what the tool error rates are like, what the response times are like. And then you can see specific information about the tool calls over time. You can see information about what the user sessions are like and how many tool calls are being run per session. And then down here, you have pie charts, which give you some more specific information about those tool calls. So you can say, for this set of tools, what does the user breakdown look like? And then vice versa, for this set of users, what does the tool call breakdown look like? And so all of this is to help the MCP developers understand more about what service, what is the best service they can offer for their users. And then the last thing down here is that we have, excuse me, we have latency distribution graph, which allows you to see what the performance is for particular tools so that you can see exactly what your user experience is like. So you know whether there are certain tools that need to have a second look to see if they're actually fitting in that agentic workflow experience, and then which ones you should double down on as very efficient calls that can work well with the agent ecosystem. And then the last thing I'll point out here is that you can also see the specific instances of those servers, and you can see specific data, including the operating system that those servers are running, the operating system architecture, the versions of those servers, so you know if your users are running the latest or if they're running an older version. And then if you have your user's permission, you can also gather some more advanced telemetry, such as the IP address or the geolocation, but only if you have the user's consent specifically. Now, on top of the basic OpenTelemetry data for MCP, we are also exploring other telemetry solutions for the other side of MCP consumers. And so we've recently experimenting with what we're calling spotlights. And so what I'd like to show you is just a quick demo. This isn't live yet, but the demo here shows you a bit about what we envision for the future of observability of AI agents. On the token analytics page, we want to offer the list of models that a user is consuming. So this would be for the consumer of those MCP servers. Which models do you go through? Which MCP client applications are you going through? You get some high-level statistics about the input and output tokens that are going through your agent and your servers. And then you can actually go into specific sessions. So for example, if I wanted to see which session has the most input tokens used, I can come in here and I can see a breakdown of the total requests made through this session, the number of input and output tokens, what percent of those tokens are actually cached, or what relative proportion are cached, and generally how many tool calls were made through this session. And then you can actually dig into those specific requests and responses. So I can see, for example, this one had 11 messages in the request, and the response was right here. And you can see that within this message, we see that there are several tool calls here. And so you can actually dig into those exact tool requests and the tool outputs. And hopefully this will help consumers of MCP understand exactly which servers are consuming the most of their context, and how they can make their servers, how they can consume servers more efficiently so that MCP is a better experience for them. And then on the flip side, if consumers have a better understanding of how these servers are performing in terms of context management and token usage, that will put more pressure on the MCP developers to make their user experience more efficient, and just a better overall experience for users of those MCP servers. And so I'm happy to continue talking about, kind of the basis of Shinzo and where we're planning to go in the future, but that's the general overview of the platform that we have today.
Awesome. That looks great. Really nicely implemented, and seems like something that you put a lot of work into. When did you start working on this product?
Yeah.
Do you mind
So
bringing it back up? Just for, it'd be
absolutely.
nice to be able to ask some questions and look at it while we're chatting.
Yeah. So the product as a whole. So I started with the instrumentation packages. So I started with TypeScript and then Python because from the developers that I've talked to, it takes up approximately 90% of the ecosystem.
Yep.
So yeah, so we started with TypeScript, built out this specifically for my servers, and then again, open sourced it. And the instrumentation package itself is completely OpenTelemetry compatible. And so you can export this data to whichever OTel compatible ingest service you would like to. So by default, we hope that you would prefer to use the Shinzo platform. But if not, then it's as easy as switching the exporter endpoint right here so that you can send it to any number of the dozens of OTel vendors that are out there. And then down here, you have additional configurations for the instrumentation as well, which includes things such as the sampling rates, PII sanitization, if you believe that your users care about sensitive data on that side. You can have additional data processing before that telemetry is sent to the ingest service. And then you can also choose which parts of the OTel data is actually exported. And so the idea is to put as much power as possible in the hands of the MCP developer, while at the same time not burdening them with too much choice and too much flexibility that they would have to sink their time and energy into.
So I was fascinated with so how far have you gone in terms of the standardizing the structure of the OTel or things like that, or is it like the OTel format is that kind of you would like to see that whatever other people copy it, or it's
so the essentially the data model that I'm following is based on the semantic conventions from the OTel working group based around generative AI. And so they have an open PR right now. I don't know if I'll be able to find it, but it's like OTel contrib number 2083.
Okay.
An open PR that has standard semantic conventions, which the MCP maintenance team is actually working on trying to merge in so that it becomes standard across the ecosystem. And so we have built on that, optimistically, hoping that this will get in, and then it becomes the standard for what all MCP telemetry is based on. But so far, it's still a work in progress while we figure out which parts of those semantic conventions are essential versus, bespoke implementations.
The other thing, so you showed token counts and stuff like that, but the one thing that
Yes. Yeah.
where is all this data coming from?
Yeah, so this is intended as a MCP consumer facing product feature. So the idea is that the user would uh, add their model provider credentials. So whether it's Anthropic, OpenAI, or Google, extending to others in the future, you add your API keys here, and then Shinzo will actually give you an endpoint that you then configure your AI apps to connect to so that it essentially proxies through our service before going to the end model. And so that allows us to intercept the requests and responses and then pull out that token data.
Okay, so like you're running like for example, like let's see, like Pydantic, they have a AI gateway type thing, which is geared just completely towards monitoring or whatever. Is that kind of like the same thing you're doing here, where it's like you just put yourself in the middle just so that you can have visibility, and that's how you collect this stuff?
Yeah. So the long-term vision is to focus on the agentic components of this observability, because I believe there's a lot of opportunity in the space of context management at the moment, because a lot of users shy away from MCP because they believe it takes up too much of the context window, and they don't know how to call tools efficiently, and they don't know how to build sub agents for specific, toolkits and tool sets. And so I think that there's a lot to be desired on the consumer side to encourage them to use MCP servers. And I believe that by giving them this visibility about what tools are being called and what the context usage is for those tools, it can help those MCP consumers make better decisions about how they integrate that with the agents that they use today.
So for my like agentic application that I'm talking to a model, I'm going to hit the model is going to hit your server. Like instead of me going directly to Google, I hit you, it proxies through, you collect all that. And then is there any type of thing where you can associate the kind of those messages with the MCP? It's a distributed tracing model, right? Like, are you solving kind of that too?
Yeah, so we do not have that yet, but I would love to move in that direction. I think, the main trouble is that with the message data that we get today, it's just focused on the tooling side of it, but it doesn't give you as much visibility into which servers those tools are actually originating from.
Yeah.
And so, from the window of what the model receives is just the list of tool requests it wishes to make versus the tools that it has in its tool set. And so there would be additional configuration you have to implement to connect that back to the original server that the user provided. Right.
Yeah, that's what I'd love to see is it's kind of weird because you make a request for the LLM, you get that back, and then you call the tool. So it's not within one span, but it at least has like a parent span or whatever. So it would be somewhat, like I'd love to see that.
Like I would too. I do think it's possible. I think it takes a little bit of that extra effort on the user side to
that's the issue.
Setup.
The client is the one who has to. But you did solve it with the other. You addressed it kind of with the TypeScript library, Python. That's what developers are looking for, just libraries or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know where this is headed in the future. The intention, of course, is to continue down the path of surfacing insights on how your agents are working, so that you can build better servers and build better, operable agents. But, we're still in the early days of exploring what that actually looks like.
And this is all a hosted platform, right? So it's running as SaaS. You just connect to the SaaS.
Yeah, so this is all hosted at the moment. I would love to open source it at a reasonable time. It's just I'm still at the stage of experimenting to understand what the correct product form is for users, and so I think I just want to get the first stable version out before I fully open source it.
That's cool.
Yeah, very cool, Austin. And so for somebody who wants to sign up and try it, what's the URL we're going to? It's just Agnost or
Yeah,
it's Shinzo.ai.
Yep, Shinzo.ai. You
And
should have the ability to sign up directly from the sites. If you want to check out the instrumentation packages, then it has links to our GitHub. So you can check out our TypeScript package here. And then if you want to see the Python one, you just go to Shinzo Labs and then Shinzo-Pi.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
And
congratulations, man. This looks really cool. And it seems like you have a really good grasp on the problem. And I think that's half the time, that's the biggest challenge as you're getting going. So congrats on the startup and building
thank
this
you.
up.
And the beautiful
You know,
thing, you can use OTel and all the power of OTel, and nobody has to see it.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. Like we handle the complexity of the telemetry, so users and developers just focus on building.
Yeah, that's nice.
Very cool. All right. Well, thanks, Austin, and maybe we'll bring you back at the end for a little bit more conversation. But I want to turn things over now to Shubham from Agnost AI. Shubham is joining us from Bangalore. Shubham, I know you're going to be talking a little bit about metrics and analytics as well. But thanks so much for staying up late. I know it's probably after midnight there, or getting close to midnight there. So
Just
tell
before
us
midnight.
tell us a little bit about yourself and the company.
Sure. So I'm Shubham. I'm the co-founder at CEO at Agnost AI. I've built this with my, I would say, childhood friend Parth, and both of us have been hanging out for the past 4 or 5 years, trying to figure out and trying to find a way to have fun and work together. And that's how Agnost AI was born.
Fantastic. Well, the floor is yours, my friend. And do you have some slides you want to share or a demo?
Yeah, I'll do a quick demo itself. I think that should be better. Let me know once the screen is visible.
All right, you're up and running. We can see the screen.
Perfect. So hey everyone. So I'll start with a quick demo in terms of what's the final output that you get to see when you add analytics, and then we'll talk about how some of our customers have been utilizing or leveraging them to make more out of their MCP servers. So this is the Agnost AI dashboard that you get to see once you integrate your MCP servers with it. This one gets you visibility across your total tool calls, active users, and more importantly, where your users are coming from. Is it a Claude or a Cursor? Because in some cases, we've also seen where you can basically modify your doc strings in a way that they work better for certain client LLMs and in a different way for certain ones. So you could tune that down based on how this graph looks for you. And tool call stats basically tells you what are your different tool calls, what's the standard latencies and the success rate. So you can really work upon these in depth, because for some cases, if you have noticed, you have a really huge, let's say a P50, but then later you found out that entire latency was on your API stack and not on the MCP wrapped around it, which is usually most of where the current MCP servers are. So you can work on that as well and cut down your latencies, which really helps, I would say, the client LLM make much more faster requests. So that could be a good help for you. And just to make things clear, this is all right now a demo data. You get to see live data the moment you do the integration, which does not take more than a minute, which I'll come or cover up at the end. Then another thing that we found a lot from our early users is they were unable to reproduce these MCP errors because LLMs being sort of undeterministic in nature. It gets really difficult for these developers to track back open GitHub issues, or let's say their support tickets as to hey, I found this error, fix this. So how we track this is a way that your end developer, or let's say your junior devs, get to see the exact input output, so you can easily reproduce them in the closest way possible. You can fix that for your end users. We have also sort of hacked around a way to create these session objects, which I'll cover later as well, where you can actually track the entire user journey. So this is where you get to see all of that stuff. And this is where I think a lot of our users right now love us, is the current problem in the entire state of MCPs is you don't know who's using them. Even if you, let's say, get to know what's the usage, how is it like, where is it coming from, you still don't know who is it using it. Is it an indie hacker, or is it an enterprise customer, or is it a paid customer? That really reduces your gravity in terms of delivering to them at the right time, or under your SLAs or SLOs. So what we do is, for you to have a way to really identify users as per your business logic, so you can actually see what, let's say, Alice at Acme Corp is doing. So you can track their entire journey in terms of what tool calls are they calling. So this is a very analogous way to how you have analytics in your traditional UI journey, right? Where you can see, okay, this is where my user clicked, this is where they hovered, and this is where they went, what this is the input output they gave. So this gives you a very good idea of tracking your user journeys, and a great way for in fact your PMs to see what majority of your users are coming from. Let's say you have 1,000 users, you could watch each of them one by one and see what's happening. Again, if that's painful, we have the next screen for you as well, which we've recently built. So in this, you get to see what's the input, what's the output. You get to understand that, okay, let's say the user, started with reading a file, then they searched file, then they wrote, and then they deleted it. So it basically means that they're using this MCP server to, let's say, write some front end code and then lint it and then like just like run a query or something. So this is what gives you an idea. And again, for certain of our customers that were, let's say, database companies or with more of sensitive data, you have the option to hide or disable input output capturing. So this gets disabled at the client side, that is your end user's object itself, without coming to your own server. So you are, let's say, well away from PII or sensitive information as well. So yeah, you could have any filters in terms of failed calls, clients, etc. And this is our latest one, that is sentiment analysis, and this has done wonders for our end users. So as I said, right, like let's say you have like 1,000 users coming daily. It's very difficult for you to track that. Hey, what's my usage like? What are my most users server doing? That's a mess. So this gets very simplified where you get this simple graph where this clusters you can understand what's the majority happening. So let's say you are this owner and you see where your frustrated users are. You could just zoom into it. You could just click and you can see that like what are your users usually frustrated with. This bits and pieces are collected by that entire user journey object that I showed you before this. We combine all of that into this state that comes up and this summary that gets created, and then you can basically identify what are the major pain points. So you don't have to go back to that user asking them, hey, what did you like, what did you not like? Because again, as end users, we hate feedback. I think the last month's feedback ratio in terms of a couple of our MCP servers was 4.5%. Like even though now Cloud Code has started asking, hey, are you liking the session or not? We ourselves still don't rate it. So that's why that feedback loop is still broken. And I think that is also a reason why this MCP ecosystem isn't growing as fast as we want to. So hopefully this makes those server developers a bit more comfortable and bit more data driven so that they can head those in the right direction. So yeah, as you can see, you have like multiple ones here. You could click here, you could get all of those, like what are your users struggling with. And yeah, I think post that is raw logs. This is usually for you to see in real time what's happening, what's going wrong, like what's the input, outputs, latencies, clients. If you wanna like really dig into something custom query that we don't support, then you just have this place entirely yours. So that is the dashboard in general. And in terms of onboarding, so as I said, to get integrated, it's just 3 lines of code. We support the official MCP SDK, the Golang SDK as well, TypeScript as well. You just need to add these 3 line, technically 2 lines of code if you do not have a linter, which I hope you do. And yeah, you get visibility across your MCP server. And you also have a way to self-host it. As I said, currently we by default we do it on our cloud. But if you want to keep that entire cluster inside your VPC, you could do that as well. And one thing that I showed you, right, where you could track your user journeys, you could do that by this simple identify hook that we created the moment you basically wrap your object, is you could pass in your entire custom definition. We give you access to the request object and environment variables. So then you can set these custom key value pairs. As in the example, you can see, let's say user ID, you could have, let's say, an authorization header or let's say an API key. You could set all of those, or let's say you want to do custom tagging, let's say of geolocation. You could do like what location is the user in, you want to build a cluster. So this really opens you up in terms of how we currently are used to tracking existing products, right? Because with MCP UI is going away, analytics are taking a very different route in terms of being a mix between observability and analytics. But we have ourselves made clear that we want to play solely on the business side of things so that MCP as an ecosystem goes in the right direction and you get to understand your users better. Like it's more important to make your users happy rather than just focus on, let's say, latency or something else. So that's why we have sort of differentiated out from us. And yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of configurations. We provide a certain kind of, like, let's say you, as I said, you could disable input outputs, you could change your own endpoints, you have the identify function. Then we have a toolbox integration. Toolbox is Google's MCP server. We are working closely with them, so you could directly integrate with them. And yeah, we support MCP Go as well. We have added support for fast MCP as well, since that's most used one. Happy to talk more about technical architecture if needed, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Currently, in terms of volume, I'd say we are dealing with what 2.5 million MCP server calls on a monthly basis. So yeah.
Shubham, this is really cool, and congratulations on the company and building this out. Maybe just as a starting point from a user perspective, how do I sign up? This is a SaaS, right? So it's a service that I subscribe to, and how do how do you charge for it? What's the kind of onboarding experience like for an MCP builder?
Correct. So right now for us, we are purely free. And again, this is not something that's going to change. For us, open source projects and indie hackers are always going to stay free because these are the people who are driven out of curiosity, right? You never charge somebody out of curiosity. You always charge them out of like commerciality. So that's why for indie hackers, they could always come play around. It's on app.agnost.ai or just agnost.ai, where they could just quickly go. If we let's just spin this up here, you could quickly come here. You could just like go to the try now button and you just get instant access to everything.
So you mentioned so this is there's kind of like a free tier for indie hackers and developers. Let's say I'm a company though. What's the pricing model? How do you price for something like this? I'm really curious how SaaS analytics companies are going to charge for their value.
Correct. So traditionally as well, we have seen analytics has always been a play where if the vertical makes money, then people would like to pay money for the analytics around it. And since the space is early, right now we have a very specific pricing in terms of per company that we onboard as to what's your North Star metric. And if that North Star metric gets delivered for you, then we charge a cut around it. Because we do not want to charge right now where people are still experimenting, right? It's very unfair for them and it reduces their, let's say, optimism to improve their MCP servers.
Got it. So you basically do custom pricing for every company right now. It's that sort of early stage pricing. I can appreciate that as a startup person. And trying to figure out a good pricing model early on is never easy. So well, let's talk about the product then. So in this solution, I'm basically managing, looking at all of the stats coming out of my MCP, but I saw that you do a lot of user sentiment analysis, and you do a lot of users. So how do you kind of get authorization from the user to do that, or where do you sort of balance the user privacy from the MCP creator, and how do you strike that balance? What's your approach there?
Correct. So one thing that we have made sure is for anybody who integrates us and does not disable input outputs, we have them, if they're open source, written on their README that, hey, this is how we track. And they always have a disable flag feature where they could disable analytics straight out. That's a flag that we make sure everybody integrates via us so that end user has always the option to not share their data. And at the end, for people who have, let's say, cloud hosted or have this enterprise MCP server, their entire privacy guidelines, let's say SOC 2, GDPR, or whatever, make them compliant in a way that they have to handle it on their own itself.
Got it. So you're kind of putting it in the hands of the MCP creator. You're not necessarily, asking the user. There's nothing you're doing to ask the user for approval. It's really on the role of the MCP creator to do that and deal with that.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Darren, any questions on your side?
No, not really. I mean, no, I really, I really like that you're tracking the user stuff. That's just really cool. The sentiment analysis. But like the sentiment analysis, that's not like that's again kind of like I was asking before. Like that's much more around like the chat completions, right? I mean, that has nothing to do with the MCP tool calls.
Correct. So so the broader vision here that we have is we want to build analytics for agents as such, right? Because if you see 3 years ago, we were clicking everywhere. Now we are chatting everywhere or using voice everywhere. Now for companies, it's becoming really difficult to understand what their user behavior wants. Like even like today, teams are hiring 200 of PMs to just listen to those user stories on a daily basis and understand what their user actually wants. So this is sort of a trailer to a bigger picture where we want to capture agents in general as to you can understand what the behavior is with your service.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like the kind of I see I feel like a lot of analytics companies in the past because you're dealing with data points that it's like graphs and percentages and stuff like that. But like now that we're capturing language and from it's like the visibility becomes quite different. It becomes a lot more towards like, really
What did
understanding.
they say? Yeah, what did they say? What do they do?
Which is such
Exactly.
a much better analytics than we've ever had before. It's like it's not just trying to infer what they're doing by where they're clicking and where they stopped or whatever, but it's like they're speaking. This is fascinating because like I think it's, I mean, as I get it that it's like, okay, MCP Analytics, but it's like, that's kind of like almost like the least important part. It's the connecting it to the agent and the conversation, and then that's where it gets. So it's like agent analytics is almost more interesting, but nobody can agree on what an agent is. So
Exactly.
it's nice to start with MCP because people, it's like, oh, this is one thing that I can target, and hopefully
That's
it'll
so true.
Yeah. So this is great. I mean,
Shubham, are you guys burning tokens to do the sentiment analysis? Like, are you actually running your own analytics back through an LLM to try to put the different comments into different sentiment buckets, or how are you doing that analytics? How are you
Yeah.
doing that analysis yourself? Is it
Yeah.
through an LLM?
So we have sort of created a classifier right now that basically aggregates or queries into these different clusters. We aren't doing a full-blown LLM because then that just leads to different compliance and token issues. It's a simple classifier that just classifies your requests right now. So these 8 to 10 clusters that you see, these are the current hard-coded ones. This feature was shipped 3 days ago for one specific customer. So we're still trying to understand that how can we make this dynamic, because the moment this is dynamic, this again, as you said, opens up to the entire agent analytics picture.
And it's a great approach, and I do think that this is where an LLM actually would be ideal. I mean, it just feels like a natural thing that you're running these conversations through a second LLM that's sort of trained and focused specifically on what is the user asking for, and even generating new topics, right? Like kind of based on, I've seen a cluster of ideas. There's a new topic here called screen sharing doesn't work, or whatever, right? Whatever the topic is, you can start to identify it in more intelligence from the conversation the user is having. I mean, I like this a lot.
Yeah, it also, it's fascinating because you can gather so much more in analytics and insight, but it also leads to all the exact same like privacy and
exactly.
As users, you don't realize it's like Google was able to kind of like figure out exactly who you are by just where you're clicking on the web, but like now they're really doing everything. It's going to be interesting.
Very cool. So, all right. So people get started. They go to your website, sign up, and try it on their app. Sounds like it's free to get quite a bit of work. Thank you so much, Shubham. It looks like a great product. Super excited that you could join us today and demo what you guys are building at Agnost. With that, Darren, do you think it might be fun to just have a little bit of a conversation with both of these guys about sort of where things are going in the space? You've taken a slightly different approach, and you're obviously solving problems that are a little bit different. I would just maybe kind of open to the floor. Do you guys expect this to be a pretty competitive market? I mean, it seems like we've had. I think you guys are probably the third and fourth analytics people that have come on the context, all kind of with a similar type of, hey, plug in this chunk of reporting information into your MCP, and it'll start sending stats our way, and we'll have a SaaS and a dashboard. And so the dashboards are very different. They sort of track different things. But given the simplicity of sort of plug this in, anybody can plug it in and start getting stats. It seems like an area that there doesn't feel to be a really high bar for people to build solutions or to implement multiple agentics or multiple analytic solutions. What's your kind of expectation for how this is going to shake out? Maybe Austin, I'll start with you.
Yeah. So I feel like in the last several years, we've had this huge revolution of coding agents where we are able to give a high-level problem to an LLM system, and then it can implement a software solution and push that out to production completely autonomously. And so that solves one side of the product loop. And then the other side that's still missing is actually knowing what features to build in that software. And so I think that's where all of these observability and analytics solutions come into play, is that if we can close off that other half of the loop, then we create a completely autonomous cycle where software products can build themselves based on the needs of the market and the needs of your users. And so I think within that space, there's still a lot of opportunity in different areas for how you can actually improve the product. So whether it's on the business side, understanding business concerns, on the technical side, improving the performance and efficiency, or if it's on the complexity of what the product solves within the market. And so I think there's a huge opportunity here if we can complete that loop and create these autonomous kind of software, evolving systems.
Yeah, Shubham, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I think I have a pretty strong take on this is that traditionally as well, if you see UI analytics, there have been players like Google Analytics, Mixpanel, Amplitude, all, co-leading their own markets. The same for API as well, where you have the likes of Sentry, Datadog, etc. competing. I think with this entire category of agent analytics coming up, is going to be much bigger. So there are going to be a lot of players, and I think all of them will somehow end up finding their own niches where let's say like one focuses on like catering to PMs or product managers, one could be purely observability. So that is where I think the place has started evolving, whereas Shinzo said, right, like 3 4 play like months ago we were all very different. Like I think I had a chat with Austin 3 months ago and both of us were tackling a similar problem then, but if you see today we are very different. So that's how our customers and the space has already taken us out. So I think
Mhm.
that's the beauty of this space, that it's evolving so fast that all of us will take our own routes.
It's really interesting, Austin, when you talk about this data kind of feeding back into the loop, right? I mean, we start to have, a prompt driving the development of an application, the
Mhm.
reaction to that application then being analyzed by the LM to improve it. And pretty quickly you start to imagine these like virtuous or terrifying cycles, however you want to think of them, as as we create things, they're interacted with by humans and LLMs, and then the LLMs themselves are seeing how they like using it, how people like
Mhm.
using it, only to then improve it. It it's really interesting. It's really kind of exciting. Are you starting to try to use that yourself? I mean, you're a single, you're kind of a founder on your own. You're building a
Yeah.
product. So are you implementing
Yeah.
this for what you're doing on a day-to-day? I mean, how much of what you're building are you developing with a coding assistant? How much are you
Yeah.
using your own analytics to sort of monitor your, kind of dog fooding this? I'm just curious if you're realizing this yourself or if you're just kind of imagining that this is coming,
Like,
but you're not quite there.
so I think we're on the verge of it. So there are some areas where I've already implemented a lot of this like automation, essentially. So I have MCP servers set up that start by picking off tickets from my linear task board, implementing the functionality, pushing it out to a staging environment. Q&A is all just set up through screenshots of the application and testing the databases. And so I have all of this process set up. So the software cycle is very largely hands off. Like, obviously, I still have to get technical sometimes because the LLMs aren't perfect. But it's, I can do 5x the amount of work as I used to as an engineer from a few years ago. And I think on the product side, what I do today is for all of the user interviews that I have, I always gather written notes as well as recorded like transcribed notes. And then I can actually like gather those into a place and then ask the agent to pull out the trends and features that they see as a common pattern across the different user discussions I have. And so to that extent, it is building these autonomous workflows that solve different parts of the business. And so it's really exciting to be able to build a business as a solo developer today, and just see how far we can go as a single enterprise.
It's
A single
crazy, isn't
person
it?
enterprise. Yeah.
Yeah, the first single person IPO will be crazy. Shubham, what about you guys? I mean, just from your perspective, have you been able to, kind of leverage any of this in your own development process?
Yeah. So for us, we do use a combination of MCP servers internally, I think that is also a reason where, we were able to dog food ourselves and find out that, hey, this is where this could be improved, or this is like, let's try to fine tune this. So we have done a lot of fine tuning, or, playing around with, let's say, Notion, Exa, or, all of these MCP servers. So that has given us a lot of insights. And apart from that, the traditional coding agents have been a huge help to us. I think, like, we are a team of 4, but I usually count us as a team of 8 because all of us have our own Claude agents, and that Claude code is pretty amazing. So yeah, but I think, as Austin pointed out, right, like, now the bigger question is, what do you want to build, or what problem are you solving, is where the bigger onus is, rather than how are you building it. So yeah.
Yeah. So I was kind of curious. Before we had gone live, Shannon and I were joking about, like, we have done startups in the past, and we did VM management, the container management. Now we're like MCP agent, so it's kind of like you just repeat the same thing. So it's the same thing with like analytics and metrics and stuff. It's like every technology generation, there's companies that come along. But because each technology brings like a new set of challenges and like a new, so I'm curious, is like, what is your kind of take of, like, what's like kind of different about, it's like, why would you not just use, like an existing analytics company? There's already big players out there who, so what's different about this trend? Or, agents, that we need a whole new class of solutions.
Yeah.
Shubham, do you want to go first?
Sure. So Parth and I wished we could. We tried these traditional solutions for our initial thing, and it did not work out well. That is where we sort of hacked around a dashboard that worked for us. And then a couple of our founder friends reached out and said, hey, we also want the same. That's where we accidentally got into the space and zoomed out to see what's happening here. Because the issue is, the protocol is built in such a different way, right? Like, traditional analytics have built on the top of UI and API and now LLM. But now with MCPs, that LLM is on the client side. So you have your entire UI distribution has gone away. The LLM is on the client side. You can't actually hook stuff in there. So you're just left with your API. Now we are still early in MCP. That's why we are still wrapping API endpoints. But the future that we see is MCP is going to be a different vertical, how we have from REST APIs. So this is a vertical that's spawning up. Now the bigger players that we have talked to, at least, are still waiting to see how the space evolves and then capture it. But we want to solve for the people who are early and are struggling with it. So I think we also hope that we could use the existing players, but we couldn't. That's how we ended up building what we are. So
Yeah.
Yeah, the same thing, Austin. Did you look at some, like, how should I monitor this with Datadog before, or how should I monitor this with an existing stack?
Datadog, PostHog, Mixpanel, solutions like that. I looked at a bunch, and I think what really frustrated me about those solutions is that they work well when you have a broad suite of software tools that you need to, like, consolidate observability for. It's kind of jack of all trades, but master of none. And so I think building observability specifically in the AI agent ecosystem allows us to focus on that niche and really build additional features that give that competitive advantage to that specific software product. And so with MCP, I think in particular, things like what a lot of the features that Shubham presented earlier, talking about, like, customer sentiment analysis for the kinds of conversations that you have with LLMs and agents, understanding, like, context management and token usage. I do think that, as inference costs stop being as heavily subsidized as they are today, I think will become a bigger pressure point for companies to optimize those costs. And so that alone is going to be an area of focus that you don't see with other software products. And so there are a bunch of these different aspects that I think are worth digging into specifically to this ecosystem.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating when you look, because you think, like, in the past, like, monitoring and stuff, you have these, like, very basic primitives of, like, gauges and histograms and all that. And it's kind of like, when you start looking in the AI space, it's like those primitives that we built all the monitoring, they're kind of useless. It's like, you can get the basic stuff, but, like, that's not what you want to look at. Like, what is it when you think, like, the whole idea of visibility is, I'm trying to figure out, like, it's because this kind of, like, bugged me of, like, it's like if you say what's the error rate for my MCP, it's like, well, that doesn't mean 500 status codes. Error rate is the tool didn't do what I wanted it to do. It's like we're going like it's like more like deep packet and it's like we need to go one more layer deeper. So it's that's because I was having this argument with someone where I'm like, you can't just take one of these existing products because their terminology just doesn't even map anymore. Because what is an error? It's completely different. We're not talking about protocol. So this is the criteria of like what's good and bad, fast, slow, and everything. It's just completely different in this space. I've just had so much fun in the AI space just because I was saying, like, we've done different management, platforms and stuff like that. And like VMs and containers, not that big of a difference.
It's better now, I think.
I mean, to me, like it's this stupid like computer. It's driving me nuts. But this also with the AI stuff is just that like everything now is just it's so different. So as engineers, like we have a lot of good knowledge on how to solve problems, but almost like the solutions that we have are not right. You really have to think about this completely different. And that's what I see is so many engineers are like, oh, I know that problem. This is the solution. And it's like, no, the game's completely different. That's not the solution. So.
I think you sparked one thought that I did want to share on the observability side, which is that I found that latency for the server responses is something that is like useful to know, but a lot of users just don't care. As long as it's within like a couple seconds, then it's effectively the same as if it was like milliseconds.
Yeah.
So it's like really the latency is about like how quickly you can get your agent to the outcome you desire. And so it's like the metrics and tools you need are completely different.
Yeah, because you care about like token latency, not the latency.
Right.
So it's
exactly.
Like you're going to see the first byte of the response way before you actually see the token. So yeah, it's fascinating.
All right, guys. I think we got to wrap up. This is great. I love. We could talk for an hour on this. Austin, Shubham, thanks so much for coming on today and demoing your products. Congrats on, being in the very beginning. Are you guys both first-time founders? Is anybody the second journey through?
First for me.
First one, sort of, yeah.
1.5? That's the best answer, Dad.
Yeah.
It's like, it's 1.5. I don't really want to talk about that. We don't talk about that. 1.5. That's my favorite answer is like 1.7, but I don't want to talk about 6. 0 through 6. Yeah. Awesome, guys. So much fun and congrats. Please go take a look at Shinzo AI. Go take a look at Agnost AI. Think about your product and what you're building and how you're really going to monitor in this new world of the MCP ecosystem and the agent ecosystem. And guys, we'll hopefully have you back on in a few months to see how things are progressing. It looks like we're getting updates every week. I saw one was 3 days old. One was probably put in yesterday. So nothing like a podcast to drive you to go add some more cool features. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Darren, thank you as always. And we'll be off next week enjoying turkey and stuffing. And then we'll see you guys all in 2 weeks. So have a great day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.